the topic of transgender continues to grow. So is there a hostile takeover by the T of the whole LGBTQ? Now, we often run into people all over, and recently we caught up with U.S. Congressman George Santos. You know, this guy's been through the ringer a little bit and not exactly put out all the facts, but as he's allegedly a member of the gay community, I thought we'd get Congressman Santos' thoughts. As someone that's in the pride community, do you feel like the T is hijacking the LGBTQ?
So, first of all, I'm in no community that preys on children, right? And I'm not saying in a pedophilia way. I'm saying just preying on children the way that this movement has been doing. But I actually was one that called for a national divorce. It's time the LGB divorced the latter, the TQ plus whatever, because we have different priorities, different issues, social issues. Like, I don't have an issue being accepted by society because I'm gay. Now, people who can't accept who they are want society to accept them for something else that they're not, and it's so confusing to me. But the reality is, I think Target, North Face, and so many others are going to have to face the music. You can celebrate pride. You don't have to shove it down every American's throat and gloat about it.
Karen and I went down to a supposed pride rally. And when we got there, it was this cast of characters like Antifa, Black Lives Matter. So what was billed as a pride rally, a transgender pride rally, turned out to be just incitement and basically screaming at the cops and Black Lives Matter. So it's like all these movements of evildoers are joining up as one under the trans umbrella, I feel like.
Hey, you know what's funny though, and if you really stop and think about it, the trans community doesn't want this nonsense. It hurts their ability to advocate for whatever real struggles they have and they're fighting for. So when you think about what's going on, this is just weaponization of virtue signaling at its finest with absolute nonsensical gibberish, and it yields us no benefit. It furthers no agenda, and it just continues to divide the country. I don't understand who and why and what is funding this, but they're hurting the community that they think they're helping, and it's not doing any good for anybody at this point.
Coming up next on Wise Guys.
We're calling people transgender who are not transgender. The people who are expanding the definition of what that means and trying to pull more people into this are specifically targeting a lot of that attention towards young teenagers, young kids.
All right, welcome back. You're watching Wise Guys. Yeah, the show where we take it to the streets. Then my favorite part, we sit down at the table in the world-famous Sparks Steakhouse right here in New York City. If you're in New York, you got to come down here. Tell them you heard about it on Wise Guys. They'll treat you like family. As usual, I'm joined by my crew. This week, as always, in the leadoff spot, our own personal knockout artist, Kara Cashinova. She's a journalist and two-time Golden Gloves champion. So if either of you guys get out of line, I got my muscle here. Michael Lee Mason joins us. He's with FreeFiltering.org, a company committed to an internet product where you have a home-based Wi-Fi filtering service. If you don't want non-Christian messages to get to your kids, you can get this for free. And you'll tell us a little bit more, but Mike, thanks for joining us. And Brandon Straka, well known around the country and the world, the founder of the WalkAway movement. And thank you so much for joining us. I know you've been through to heck and back in the last few years.
Several times.
I saw you last, but God bless you, and welcome to the table with the Wise Guys.
Good to be here.
We appreciate it. Now, on Wise Guys, we don't just do this surface stuff. You don't see people with six boxes. We sit at the table. We have a rational conversation. What better way to have a rational conversation than to bring a homosexual man and a homophobic man to the table with a boxing referee present as well. So, guys, one of the things that's confounding me is I'm all for pride. And I always say on this show, the pride flag is waving. Adults, do whatever you want. I'm a libertarian, right? You're an adult, do what you want. But leave the kids alone. And I feel like the T I come from Wall Street, is doing a hostile takeover on the LGBTQ. And if you don't like the T, that means you hate the whole pride movement. What do you think about what's happening with the T and the LGB?
Well, I agree largely with a lot of what you just said, but I do think there's a little bit of an oversimplification here, because what my big issue is, and I think the issue for a lot of people who are in this community, whether you're gay or lesbian or bisexual or transgender, is that we're calling people transgender who are not transgender, and that we've kind of expanded what this definition means. And I think most egregiously, the people who are expanding the definition of what that means and trying to pull more people into this are specifically targeting a lot of that attention towards young teenagers, young kids, and going into schools and saying, and when I say going into schools, I mean whether it's teachers or guidance counselors or just or curriculum or literature, targeting awkward kids, kids with autism, kids who are uncomfortable in their bodies. Maybe they're not as pretty as the other girls. Maybe they're a little overweight. They don't feel good about themselves. And they're saying, you know, maybe the reason you don't feel good about yourselves is because you're in the wrong, yourself is because you're in the wrong body. Maybe you would feel better if you were part of this trans movement. The last thing I'll say about it is, what happens is for a lot of these young kids who end up saying, oh, maybe that is it. Maybe I am trans. I now identify as trans. Then they're getting this thunderous applause and support and being like, congratulations. Yeah, and then all of a sudden they're like, this is what I wanted all along, to feel celebrated for who I am.
Kara, you never suffer with not feeling pretty, but can you understand where Brandon's coming from, that vulnerable? I mean, we had Ollie London on, who started transitioning and then stopped and said he was depressed and people were calling him gay, so he thought he was gay, so he stopped getting picked on when he said he was gay. And then he realized that he's not a woman.
Well,
what do you think?
I think kids, like Brandon said, are very impressionable when they're young. I know I grew up with 3 brothers, and I know there's a thing called, I don't know if we're allowed to say the word penis envy, but I had 3 brothers who used to run around naked in front of me, and I was always like, what's going on here? And I noticed they were...
you had penis
No,
envy.
I didn't.
Oh,
but I noticed that...
I think she said
I noticed
right?
that they were treated differently by my dad, who was a Marine, and he treated them differently than me, and I didn't understand why at the time. And if someone would have told me then, you know what? You could be a boy too. As a 5-year-old girl, I might have been like, wow, that will make my life easier.
Get one of them too?
You know what I mean? Like that might solve my problems. Now looking back in hindsight, obviously I don't ever want to be a guy, no offense, ever. And that would have been a big mistake. But I do understand that kids are very impressionable and they might take the easy route out, like Brandon said. And I'm not trying to say that there aren't really kids that do feel like they're transgender, and I do sympathize with them and their parents, because that has to be the hardest thing in the world. But I'm saying, from my personal experience growing up with 3 brothers, I
wanted a wiener.
I didn't want a wiener, John. I'm just saying, I think that...
Do you now?
I do not.
Okay.
But if there was an agenda back then, maybe if we had the same media then as we do now as a kid, maybe I would have said, you know what, I'm a boy.
Yeah, I'll take one. Would you, at this point, 29 years later, into this life of yours, would you trade in your monthly cycle for 1 wiener?
No.
You
I
would.
hate getting my period, and I'm telling I hate getting my period.
Yeah, I always complain about
Right, no.
period. You know, you just take a wiener.
Right. I hate it. And any trans man that says that he wants to get his period or trans women, I'm sorry, is insane, because it's not pleasant.
Now,
So,
Michael Lee Mason, Air Force veteran, one of the top singers in the Air Force choir, from what I hear. You hate all of this stuff. You don't want the pride flag flying. You don't want homosexual people near kids. And you said before in our pre-discussion that you can be construed as homophobic.
I can be. I don't embrace that term, because if you're going to call me homophobic, you also need to call me divorce phobic, fatherless family phobic, adultery phobic. I don't like things that I believe are ultimately destructive to our society. Over the last 20, 30 years, I grew up in an environment where I was constantly trying to be told, hey, embrace diversity and inclusion. At a large college campus in North Carolina, for example, I had to hear this. And the truth is, there's been a massive propaganda campaign for the last 2 decades to convince kids that are awkward, right? They're socially awkward. Maybe they don't represent the typical male or female, whatever proclivities. Hey, maybe you're gay, right? I played the piano growing up. I was not athletic, okay? So if I hadn't had parents who taught me, hey, there's certain ways that God has designed you as a boy, a male, in his image.
Yep.
There's certain ways that you should behave. I very well could have heard from my friends at school or my teachers, you must be gay. You play the piano.
Yeah.
You know, you're not athletic. You dress funny, right? So there's social...
They may have been onto something.
Right, I know, I dress funny, right? I forgot my nice blue blazer. But I see all of this as social contagion, right? Kids are very impressionable, right? So they get sucked in at school into this ideology, and then they go home and they get on YouTube. And if they've been introduced to one idea at school that says, hey, little boy, maybe you're a girl, then they get on YouTube, and thanks Google, okay, now I watched one video on how I might be a 9-year-old boy, but maybe I'm a girl. Next thing I know, Google's showing me video after video about that, and then I'm totally confused.
This is good conversation. This is kind of doesn't happen a lot on television where you have different, complete points of view, but you can talk it through. We actually found a couple of little trinkets of common ground in there, and we're going to try to find some more. We always got common ground with all of you out there. Wise Guys Nation continues to grow, and we got more conversation on the hostile takeover by the transgender on the LGBTQ movement. Is it real? We'll talk about it more right after this. Don't move. Coming up next on Wise Guys.
I'm gay. I'm a gay man. But like, this is not, I'm not living a gay lifestyle.
All right, welcome back. What I want to do is, everybody got their opening salvos on the record. You're committed to keeping, it's not just transgender, but LGBTQIA plus, anything that you deem and your organization deems as non-Christian. You don't want it in people's households, and FreeFiltering.org is committed to keeping his lifestyle, Ruben I. Hairdresser's lifestyle, away from your kids.
Yep. What is my lifestyle?
Well, I thought you were a gay man.
Yeah, but how is that a lifestyle? Like, what is my lifestyle?
I may use the wrong term. You know, what would you call it?
Well, it's a
your
sexual
sex?
orientation.
Okay,
Yeah.
sexual
So
orientation.
rephrase that, so.
No,
Oh, isn't that part of the discussion?
No, I
Yeah.
like him
Yeah.
discussing
Okay.
it. It's- Do you want to direct the
Oh, it's fun.
episode?
No, sorry, I didn't want to offend Brandon.
No, I'm not offended. No, but I think it's
officially
important.
stepped down as the executive producer and director of the show, and Kara's taking over now, but all right, that'll get edited.
No, but I think it's an
appreciate
important
that.
part of the
Yeah.
conversation.
When I said lifestyle, I was looking for a term that I don't know if you call it sex, gender, whatever, but he wants your sexual orientation
Right.
out of our households.
Right, and I wasn't asking because I'm offended. I was asking for clarification because it is important. Like, where do we draw the line? I don't know much about his product, but would it be, like, would any content that I make as a content creator be blocked because I'm gay?
No. If your channel was devoted to saying your lifestyle's healthy, perfectly normal, and every kid should embrace it, yeah, we would block it. But if it's just like, hey, this is political, I'm walking away from the Democrat Party or whatever, no. It has to be a website or
Well,
something.
his organization is encouraging and advocating, creating awareness for people of his sexual orientation.
So, yeah.
to walk
And
away
people.
from the Republican, to
And,
walk
you
away
know-
from the
And all
Democrat Party. Yeah.
That would be a tough call for me. I have to make thumbs up or thumbs down decisions about entire domains. So advocate.com or any website that's devoted to LGBTQ news, I block. You'd be a.
Oh,
you'd
I
be
would
a,
block the Advocate too.
Yeah,
All right, so we found
yeah, yeah. You'd be tough. Like if your website's devoted to I don't know, you'd be hard for me to make a decision about all my free users. I might let parents make the decision who pay me to block specific things, whether they wanted to block your
See,
website.
but this is why the question about lifestyle is pertinent to me because, like, I don't have a boyfriend. I'm at this moment not in a sexual relationship. I'm gay. I'm a gay man. But like, this is not. I'm not living a gay lifestyle. I'm a gay person living my life.
Got it.
And some of the work that I do
hate-
is political and advocacy.
Yeah, and I would argue like I'm an adulterer at heart, right? Like I have the potential to be an adulterer, but I'm not going to claim that as like my orientation in life. I'm going to say that's a disordered part of myself that I constantly have to struggle against every day.
Right.
So that's just the disagreement. Like, I don't embrace my tendency to sexual sin as a core part of who I am.
All right, so do you think that half of Americans are damned because they're divorced, homosexual, commit adultery, steal?
Yeah, so I believe what Jesus Christ said. He said if a man divorces his wife and marries another, he's committed adultery. If a wife divorces her husband and marries another, she's committed adultery. Yes, so this is not just a gay issue, a trans issue. This is our country is morally bankrupt, right? Husbands and wives are walking out on each other, okay, for their convenience, for their temporary happiness. It's destroying their families. That's just as bad. So people attack me and say, why are you focused on, LGBT people? I'm not. Right? I'm focused on the fact that our country today, 70 years after the sexual revolution, is morally bankrupt.
So you want pro-traditional family?
Yes.
Is that
yeah,
fair?
I want kids have a
I'm
right.
gonna give you the last word.
Yeah.
We'll take a
I
break.
just think
This
that
is
I think
stimulating
it would be hard. I think it would be hard to censor. I think you'd have to censor 90% of stuff then, which basically
That's
means
what he
people will be
does.
living in a cave.
Coming soon. Coming soon. I told I'll leave that out. Coming soon, divorce attorneys. We'll block them.
You're blocking divorce.
We'll block them. Coming soon to an internet filter near you.
All right, lots of stimulating conversation. You're never going to get this anywhere else, that's for sure. On Wise Guys, we're always looking out for you, our fans, trying to bring you the best conversations. I want to send a special shout out this week to the Shahinians who are tuning in every single week, and also the O'Rourke's out there in Long Island. Keep the feedback coming. We need it, guys. I want to thank you. Kara, as always, thank you. And when you tune into Wise Guys, there are always 3 things that will be guaranteed every week. Truth.
Justice.
And the American way.
We'll see you again next week, right here on Wise Guys.